So let's tie together these three themes that we've explored so far: mental habits, Gator-brain, and point. And let's see if we can learn from the experience of another human being just how powerful paying attention to this stuff can be for ourselves. I'm going to talk about a buddy of mine now by the name of Mike Willett and his wife, Susie. Now, Mike, when I first met him, worked at Zimmer Spine, and I was doing a training for them around the creative problem-solving method and creating more innovation at Zimmer Spine. Zimmer Spine, now Zimmer Biomet, they make devices that, when you have problems in your body that need to be fixed, those devices can help hold you in place in ways that you can't hold yourself in place anymore. And so Mike goes through the training. Now, I didn't know Mike at all in the beginning of the training, and we've become fast friends since, but he tells the story that prior to his exposure to what you're being exposed to now, he was a bit of a curmudgeon. His gator brain kind of ruled the show. Contrast that with his wife, who, Susie, is, we'd call her a serial ideator. She didn't work for a cereal company, cereal with an S. She just kept coming up with ideas all the time. And Susie experienced Mike as a curmudgeon, and it wasn't always the easiest thing for their relationship, where Susie has an idea and Mike's gator brain tells her what's wrong about it, right? Little friction, yeah? And so Mike goes to this training, and it was residential, so he was away from home for a few days, and he came home after that, and just in conversation shortly after he had been home, Susie had a brainstorm and she shares an idea with Mike. And Mike says, "You know what I like about that?" Now, it didn't have to go very far before Susie was like, "Who stole my husband? What happened to this guy? This is not you." And she said something to him about that. She says, what's going on? This is not your normal response. And this idea that I have is no better than the other ones, right? And so Mike said, I got some training. It caused me to take a look at myself. I realized that I do a thing that's not necessarily productive, both at work, in our inventive work around, he was a biomedical engineer, working in that area. And he says, I could probably be more fluent at work with creativity, and I certainly can be more fluent with your creativity. And maybe we'll get along even better than we already do. They weren't really in trouble, but it was one of those points, like all relationships have, that's where their friction showed up, right? So flash forward, Mike really took this on. He got serious about it, serious enough that he taught Susie some of these things. Susie came from the marketing world, and even marketeers, they think, oh, we're already really creative, but I found they have their own form of arrogance that shows up in its own way. So they became much better at utilizing creative problem solving, which you're going to learn about, and treating ideas wisely. Going further forward, the end of their story ends up with Mike and Susie went to get an MBA. They both had advanced degrees already, but they wanted to get an MBA, and they did that together out in Minneapolis, where they're from. And they were working on their thesis, which usually is a business model in an MBA program. And their professors let them work on it together. They just had to do twice the amount of work. And they ended up looking for a way to create a business. And they didn't know what business to create. And Mike one day was reading through some medical literature, and he was reading about this product called Quick Clot that causes coagulation. Like you get a bad wound, it'll cause the bleeding to stop. And he found himself wondering if they could start a business to find a way to clot more rapidly than what the current state of the art was. So he threw that out to Susie, and she said, like she would, yeah, sure, let's give that a try. Because they know they don't need to really actually create a business. They just have to plan one out. Well, flash forward, they ended up creating that business because in their kitchen, they started practicing. They found out some information, some data about how these things work. They modified them. They went into veterinary at first. It works great. They've got FDA clearance in human beings that moves forward. And they own a company called Protege Biomedical. And it's been a wonderful story to watch unfold. And they've kept me abreast of how it goes all along. So Mike applied first. He applied praise first just in a personal relationship, saw the value of it, and continued to do that moving forward. He did that because he was also paying attention to something that we call the innovator's values. And that's what we're going to learn about next.